What you doing with my egg there? You better not be about to eat it.
Baba, Baba.
I'm watching you. What did I just say? Bad baby! Bad!
Welcome back, everyone, to We Have Spoken.
We have spoken.
We have spoken.
Yes, where we speak about the latest Mandalorian episodes. And today we have a twofer for you. Due to scheduling conflicts, we unfortunately weren't able to make individual videos of these, hence why we're kind of smushing them together. But we kind of figured this was a good place to do it, because despite what happened in
The second
the
episode.
second episode. We didn't feel there was really that much to talk about in terms of constituting a full video, so we kind of mushed it together with this, because I mean it kind of carries into the next one, so it's all good.
And there's certainly a lot more to talk about in episode 3.
Yes, definitely. So we'll start off with episode 2, The Passenger, and I think we should get the Baby Yoda in the room out of the way first.
The Max Rebo in the room.
So, yes, obviously the most noteworthy thing about the episode was Yoda eating the Frog Lady's eggs. I gotta say, I had conflicting feelings myself. On the one hand, yes, I was like screaming at him not to do it. And like, no, bad baby, bad baby. But on the other hand, I think people have been blowing it out of proportion a bit too, because they're like, oh, cancel Baby Yoda, he's committing genocide, and like, he's a baby killer. And I'm like, first of all, he's a baby. He doesn't know any better. Second of all, he's a predator. He's looking for food.
He's been shown eating frogs.
Yeah, he's been shown eating
Or any other
full-size
small
frogs.
animals.
Yeah. And third, she had a whole bunch of other eggs, so, you know, it's not like he ate the entire tank.
No.
Yeah. What did you guys think about that?
I'm kind of in the same camp as you. Like, I'm just like, it's a little baby getting into a little bit of mischief.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't know any better. You know, it doesn't, all it does, like, it sees something, it sees food, and it wants to eat it. That's kind of how I see it. And I think because we've put the Baby Yoda on a pedestal from season 1, that everyone, as soon as it does something very naughty, everyone, the internet loses its collective mind. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's just being a baby. Like,
I'm convinced that the writers and director did this on purpose, because everybody has, like you said, like, glorified the child so much, and everyone's like, oh, he's such a precious angel, he can do no wrong, I laid my life down for him. It's like, let's show him doing something that is totally disgusting and despicable, and see if they still feel that way about him. And it's like, a lot of people I've seen are in the same boat. They either don't think it's a big deal, or they think it's the worst thing ever. And I gotta admit, it's been hilarious to watch. What did you think?
So yeah, I'm kind of of that mind too, but to say that he doesn't know any better, I think by the end he certainly does.
well, yes.
Because we see, like, at the very end, he's looking around to see, you know, because he's been told numerous times, don't eat them. And then at the end, when he sees everybody's looking away, he sneaks an egg. So, yeah, I definitely don't think he does not know better. But I think ultimately it all has to do with context.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, he's been shown to be a predator. That's what they do. I think all it is like, also, it's showing just how bad, like, Mando and the mother were at actually, like, keeping an eye on him.
I know, it's like they force Mando to fly normally instead of in light speed, because they said it'll damage the eggs. But all the shit they went through in that episode, they may as well have damaged the eggs.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, also with the case that she's carrying them, did she not lock it?
Yeah, although I heard some people say the child used, like, the Force to unlock
That's possible.
Yeah.
So, because I was thinking that too. It's like, does she really leave that thing unlocked? Like, what if it tilted over and spilled? But no, I'm pretty certain this little guy just used his powers or whatever.
Point is, don't take your eye off kids for a second if we've heard anything from
it's like telling
other stories.
It's like telling kids, don't touch the cookies that come fresh out of the oven. It's like, yes, it's bad because they'll hurt themselves, but they don't care because it's food, and they'll still try to do it no matter how many times you tell them no.
It's like Nash from Radio Dead Air saying, "Watch your kids."
Mm-hmm. Watch your kids.
Otherwise, they will They will somehow get your keys and drive to McDonald's or God, who knows what.
If we get an episode where Baby Yoda takes the Razor Crest and just flies off, that's gonna be the most hilarious thing ever.
Hasn't that ship been through enough?
That would be the perfect marketing, like in terms of toys and stuff. Little Baby Yoda flying the Razor Crest with his own little helmet or something.
Why do I have a feeling that's going to be an episode in like season 3 where one day he just takes over the Razor?
I claim credit. Disney, give me my
You're giving Jon Favreau ideas.
He takes the Razor Crest while like Mando is like sleeping and just flies to a planet like basically Baby Yoda goes on his own little adventure. Goes on his own little adventure that it takes up like the whole episode, and then Mando wakes up and it's like, and everything's like normal. It's like, what happened? And it's like, you didn't get in any trouble, did you? And he's like,
this never happened.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like at some point there's going to be an episode where it's just a Baby Yoda thing, and you gotta
be like those episodes featuring Maggie when she goes off on her own.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Simpsons.
At some point they're going to do it.
Yeah,
because it's funny.
Or they're going to release a little short or something, just parodying all that. We'll have the typical, we'll have the stereotypical, the baby going through the construction zone thing where he goes on the lifting beam and he's like several feet in the air and so on and so forth.
The child's day out.
It's funny because like we're talking about episode 2 and like this episode, it's definitely a different style from like the previous episodes. Where this one is very more of a survival type episode where. Their ship gets damaged. They're crashed on this ice planet, and they're basically trying to survive. And something that you'd think in a show like this we would have gotten by now, but they waited until this point, to do something like this. It's kind of typical. Like it's one of those things like you're gonna see once every season, 2 seasons. With like these space westerns. It kind of reminds me of that episode of Firefly, Out of Gas, where the ship is just floating in space, and that's what it kind of reminded me of. That kind of survival type episode where they're just trying to make it through the night.
I just feel so bad for Mando in this episode because like this is a side quest that could have been solved so easily with light speed, but. The writers went out of their way to explain why that wouldn't work just so the rest of that bullshit could happen. And what happens? He gets pulled over by the cops. He crashes his ride. His kid's eating the other kids in the car.
And there's spiders. Freaking ice spiders. Ice space spiders creeping around.
Like none of that had to happen. But of course it did because that's Mando's luck. I gotta say, I found that scene where they were stopped by the two rebel pilots.
Republic pirates.
The New Republic.
Yeah, the New Republic pilots like saying, "Oh, your transmitter's off," and he's like, "Oh, sorry, it's I forgot to turn it back on." It's like, "Oh, we'll wait," and he's like, "God damn it! It's because he's Mandalorian, isn't it?"
It's like negative. We're just we're fine now. How are you? It's that kind of
boring conversation anyway.
That's what it felt like. Like it was like that kind of moment. Like they're kind of still like not so much copying beats, but like kind of creating like similar like vibes from like the original trilogy and stuff. And that's just going to Tatooine. But I mean,
we notice you have some warrants out for your arrest. Oh yeah, the thing about that is, oh, we got a runner.
Think about that. And look, the giant spider. Where?
And then just like in the end, the Republic guys meeting up with them in the cave and blasting all the spiders, and then they're like, "Oh, we found this thing out, but it's not that big a deal." And then he manages to negotiate. So you're telling me this could have all been dealt with
if he just turned his transmitter on?
Like, I get it. He probably has a lot of warrants out for him, and he is a bounty hunter, so his job is naturally to kill people. But, yeah, I feel like had he just complied, yeah, we could have saved all that grief, and it would have been it wouldn't have been, like, he wouldn't have crashed his ship, let's put it that way. Because, dear God, the Razor Crest is going through so much this
season. Because on the one side, it's like you're wanted, but on the other side, you did kick the Empire's ass, the remnants of the Empire's ass. So it's like, I guess that kind of balances it out. Like if they explain, like if he had just like explained, like I had some run-ins with the Empire, where I should say at this point it's more like fragments of the Empire because it's not quite. This is like the period in Star Wars where like the New Republic is just starting to form out, but like there's still like remnants of the Empire. Like there's still like different warlords out there, and they're basically just trying to hunt down all the different warlords and stuff. So it's like if Mando just explained like, oh, I kicked the Empire's butt once or twice, and they're like, oh, okay.
I think the part of the issue too is that Mando is not a good liar. Like he's good at omitting the truth, like not saying his intentions, but when it comes to like trying to fool people outright, like lie or whatever, he has like no talent for that. So
he lacks force persuasion.
He is not one with the Force.
You have found weapons of mass destruction.
There's actually a video asking, like, does he know about the Force? Like, there was actually a video discussion, I think it was like Star Wars Explained, where they were going on about, does Mando know anything about the Force? I mean, it's a good question, because, like, at the end of that series, end of the season 1, like, he talks about the Jedi, like, oh, they're space wizards or whatever, but, I mean, which is true, but... Then again, it's, I guess, his own familiarity with him, because, like, he was a kid during the Clone Wars, which means, like, during the original trilogy, he was probably doing something, probably hanging out with the Mandalorians so much that he doesn't know too much about the Jedi. Then again, at that point, the Jedi would have been, Order 66 and whatnot. But anyway.
Spain during World War II, they're just staying out of everything.
Pretty much.
I do like other moments in the episode as well. I like at the very beginning when that one bandit was like holding Baby Yoda captured and threatened to kill him, and they had to like negotiate, and he gave him his jetpack, and then he operated it like when the guy was far enough away. I'm like, clever dog.
I kind of knew that was going to happen. Like, yeah, it's like, here, take the jetpack. It's like, whee!
I think there's actually also been kind of piggybacking to the discussion on the child and. Is it going to the dark side and everything with eating the eggs? Because I was listening to the Scrubs Rewatch podcast, and Donald Faison brought up this point that like Mando is basically like breeding the child in a way, in that he's exposing him to all this stuff and showing him all this violence and evil, and. I think that kind of plays into the egg-eating discussion of, they think that the child might be turning to the dark side.
But I think it's a little early to tell because...
It's not like dark side stuff. Like, he looks at it as food. He doesn't understand that they're, they could potentially become babies.
Yeah, but I think it also, it's like, when they're children, they're absorbing everything they're seeing. It's like they're very impressionable. So, this kind of stuff can rub off, and I don't fully buy into him. That's going to turn him to the dark side.
Though to be fair, he has already force choked someone.
Yeah.
He's force choked what's her name. So that is one possible.
But like I said, I don't really buy into the fact that he'd be turning to the dark side. I'm just saying he is being exposed to this, and that can account for some behavior.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I also like we got to see Amy Sedaris again. I like she kicked that guy's ass in that was a game of Sabak after she made Mando pay for the other guy's like input. I'm like, oh my god, like clever, but that was low.
Yeah, really.
Another part I liked when the frog lady, in an attempt to communicate with Mando, actually hooked herself up to that robot, the one that was with the
from the prisoner episode.
Yeah, from the prisoner episode, and like was able to like communicate it with him through the droid. Like that was really clever.
I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I like the frog lady overall. I mean, I question her method of getting over there. I question also why she was on Tatooine. It doesn't seem like a place for her species to be.
Maybe it was in passing.
I guess, but...
And then she, like, on the run too,
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
sort of.
She was probably hiding out in Tatooine for
True.
a bit. Yeah.
But
Who doesn't hide out in
Yeah,
Tatooine?
that's a good place to hide.
But she was like clever, and she could actually fight, and she was like, actually helping Mando to defeat, all the obstacles that they came across and stuff. She even saved Baby Yoda, despite the fact that he was eating her eggs.
Yes.
So it's like I really liked her. It's like it's a shame that we couldn't really hear from her more, but she was a good mom. Anything else to add about this episode?
Nothing too much.
No, there's really not much more to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said,
I'm surprised we got that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the whole egg eating thing.
Yeah.
That's the big draw of this episode. If that didn't happen, this
That's
would
the
just
big
be an
takeaway.
ordinary episode.
So then, moving on to episode 3, the Heiress.
Yeah, that's where we get the good stuff. We finally meet another familiar character, Bo-Katan. Kryze, was it her last name?
I think so.
Yeah. Before we get started about this, I just want to make something perfectly clear. Between the three of us, we have a very basic knowledge of, the Clone Wars and everything that happened in between episode 2 and 3. So, for instance, he's seen the Clone Wars, he's seen Rebels, I've only seen snippets of both. So, admittedly, we're a bit ignorant about some of the stuff. So, when I saw Bo-Katan, I knew her by name, but I didn't really know her. So, I didn't have the big reaction that everybody else apparently had to this.
And I remember kind of seeing her in Rebels, but since I didn't watch Clone Wars, I didn't really have the, knowledge of who she really was, so it didn't really register too much with me. I mean, I do obviously know about the Darksaber, that much,
I was surprised at I was surprised at the end of season 1 where all of a sudden the Darksaber comes up and I'm just like, wait a minute, okay, this show just got really interesting.
But in any way.
I will say though, judging as, seeing and getting to know Bo-Katan for the first time, again as a casual viewer, I did like her. I think she's a badass Mandalorian. I definitely think she'd be a worthy leader to the Mandalorians when they, come back and take over the planet. I think she's a bit conniving, a bit underhanded, and I get why she does it because, they're all in hiding, they're still trying to track down the Empire, get back their shit, and, she's trying to get back the Darksaber. But at the same time, I kind of when she was kind of doing stuff without telling Mando what it was their ultimate goal was, I'm like, dude, that's not cool. Come on, you better hope to God this works in your favor, otherwise he's probably going to kill you later.
I think it's probably because this is the episode that actually finally explains something that I've been wondering since the beginning of the show, and they finally explained it here, where throughout much of the season 1, we get a feeling that the Mandalorians, like at the end of season 1, they say that the Mandalorians isn't a race, it's a creed, which kind of contradicts basically all the other stuff, especially in Clone Wars, where they make it perfectly clear that Mandalorians is in fact a race. They come from a planet called Mandalore. Mm-hmm. So when you hear that in this new Mandalorian series, I mean, yes, I understand they resetted the extended universe stuff, but the Clone Wars stuff that was written there is still canon. So I'm glad that they explained it here, in which they finally explain, oh, you're from a different sect you're from an old school version of the
From a cult.
From Mandalore that believe in never taking off the helmet and stuff. Very, very, very old, maybe very orthodox.
That explains so much.
I know, and that's the thing. It does explain much, and it also shows that, oh yeah, this is why there's two different sets of
I was so
of
confused, after watching the first season of Mandalorian, because he was saying how we're not supposed to take off the helmet, and I kept thinking, why is it that Jango Fett took his off? But of course people explained it away, saying, oh, he's not actually a Mandalorian, he stole the armor. I'm like, okay, I buy that. But then when we started watching Clone Wars and I saw snippets of Rebels, I saw characters from Mandalore who didn't cover their faces. So I'm like, okay, so is there different parts of Mandalore where you're allowed to show your face? Is this how it used to be before this went down? Did they change it later? What's going on? So I'm really thankful for this episode to finally pointing that out.
And that's something that I think it was something that they kind of had to do, because when they explained it in the finale of season 1 of Mandalorian, it's okay, this is going to confuse a lot of older fans like myself who like been following Star Wars, and it's like, oh no, it's this, but now you have this new thing, and that's something that they needed. I felt like they needed to correct because like, all right, because they forgot that some of the stuff from the old canon is still part of the new canon. The Clone Wars stuff, the Rebel stuff, like that's still all there.
I gotta say, I have to take back what I said now in the last episode, because I was saying before how you can go into season 1 of The Mandalorian having only the basic knowledge of Star Wars and you'd be perfectly fine. Like, obviously there are tidbits you can spot, but as like a casual viewer, you can go in and not be overwhelmed by everything. It seems like season 2 is totally undoing all that and are going out of their way to incorporate all of like Clone Wars and Rebels and any other side stuff they can into it for like the hardcore fans. So now we have to like actually do our research just to understand what's going on and appreciate it.
Not
necessarily.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's still like they're doing a good job of like reintroducing the characters so that way the new people can still get, can be introduced to them without having to go through, the past continuities, of Rebels and Clone Wars. So yeah, I think it's still on that very basic level. I do not think it's undoing that at all. It's certainly going a little more into the fan service for certain, but it's not alienating new viewers.
Well, I'm not saying it's
No, I don't think
alienating.
so
I
either.
was able to understand, the character, her goals, and all that just fine, but at the same time, it's like, I still knew that going into this, I'd have to do some research, and I'm looking at all this, and I'm like, okay, so there's a whole bunch of backstory and things that explains mostly everything, and I shouldn't really have to research it. I'm sure they'll address it later on in the show, but
But did you do that because you felt forced to, or because you were actually interested in learning about this character?
I think it's the latter.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Like, I like to do research. Like, it helps me, understand things in general. So, I was actually fascinated. Like I said, I'm watching Clone Wars and eventually Rebels just so I can know. But at the same time, it's also a slight fear out of dealing with, like, the more extreme Star Wars fans.
Well, I mean, that kind of just goes into, because we're doing this show, but
Yeah.
if we weren't doing this show, you'd probably be more just interested in learning about the character.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
after the Darksaber showed up at the end
Yeah.
of season 1, I'm like, I gotta know about this. So I started watching clips from Rebels, and I'm like, okay, that explains that. All right.
And I think very much that is what this show is doing right. It's not, it's not trying to call out, trying to separate the new fans from the the hardcore old fans. It's trying to get your interest. It's and it's still keeping it so that you're introduced, you can just jump in and, not have to worry about the years of continuity, but you can go and look at it if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah, like if you're just watching it just for the Mandalorian, that's fine. That's totally okay. I mean, there's enough material in there for you to understand what is going on. But if you would like to know more, there is plenty of material to go through, and I think it's a little easier to follow a lot of the other expanded universe stuff simply because of the reboot that they did a couple of years ago that kind of reset everything. So now there's not as much dense material because we don't have like 30 plus years of extended universe material. I mean, we only have maybe, 8 years maybe worth?
Like,
7,
they'll pick
8
and
years.
choose what they want from, if
And
they
they're
want
still
to use that continuity.
And they're still trying to reincorporate
Yeah.
stuff, so... But like I said, like, if you like The Mandalorian, if you're just watching Star Wars just for The Mandalorian, that's fine. I'm just saying the other stuff is there if you want to know more.
And I mean, I feel like they are going to go in a certain direction based on how Rebels ended. Obviously, there might be that bit of overwhelming. You probably should watch, Clone Wars and Rebels to know what they're going to do. But again, I feel like they're going to handle it in a way that, new fans will not be overwhelmed by it.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that I'm not interested. I said I am in the process of learning all this stuff. It's just I'm worried I'm not going to learn it fast enough by the time new episodes air, and then people are freaking the hell out, and I'm like, what's going on? I show my noobness. But back to the episode. This was a nice action-packed episode. The whole thing with them taking over the ship and all that was intense. I really enjoyed it. I question how the Empire still has, like, that...
Unlike the Empire, the remnants of the Empire are kind of ballsy and how
Like, I don't
like,
expect them to disappear overnight.
No,
I get it's been 5
but-
years since, like, the Death Star blew up, but still.
I feel like they should know that their time is ending, and they're clinging very hard to this way of life.
It's the point where they have freaking suicide things in
Yeah.
them.
There is actually one major battle that happens with them, and it's talked about in the one book in the Empire's End trilogy books, and also it's mentioned in one of the last missions in the Battlefront 2 campaign, the Battle of Jakku. That's why in the beginning of Force Awakens you see like a damaged Star Destroyer and stuff, because it's left over from what was essentially basically the Empire's last stand.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, like I do like the whole battle and stuff. They have way more stormtroopers than I thought they would. I still question where they get all these stormtroopers.
Well,
I figured they were done with the clones by this point, but whatever.
think of it as like robot in the one Robot Chicken sketch at the end of one of the first Robot Chicken Star Wars, where you see this one commander. It's like oh, I guess we're done. What do you mean we're done? Like we still have ships flying about. Think of it that way.
They blew up the Death Star. They won.
What do you mean they won? We still have fleets scattered. We have ships scattered throughout the galaxy. Think of it that way. Seriously, think of it that way, as there's still like ships and stuff, and there's
It creates a power vacuum, and everyone just tries to like take
Pretty
over,
much.
and it doesn't work.
pretty much.
They're on the run. They have no idea. I guess they're trying to find some sort of order in the chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
They're like Mando. They're like Mando. Like Mando's trying to find more of his kind, and the Empire's trying to find more of theirs. They're like scattered throughout and trying to make what will inevitably be their last stand at the Battle of Jakku.
I'm glad he finally did find Mandalorians, because I was worried this was going to be another wild goose chase where he gets there and it's a false lead and he has to go find yet another person who may know of where they are. I'm glad we just stopped
Otherwise
right
it's just
there.
going to go on and on all season.
I was also worried, though, because, like, he almost died in this episode. Him and the child almost died in this episode. It wasn't for Bo-Katan and her compatriots.
Yeah.
Because when they shoved Yoda into the water with that fucking thing, I'm like, oh my god.
I was a bit shocked too. I'm just like, oh no, like, oh shit.
Like, I had the feeling that was happening when they're like, oh, you want to watch us feed this giant deadly creature? Oh, bring the child a little closer so you can watch. I'm like, no, shove, no! Oh my god. And of course he dove like head first in there. I'm like, dude, I get you want to save the child, but you're gonna get eaten too. And then they almost drown him or stab him or whatever. So, and then of course he treats them like shit when they reveal their helmets. He's like, oh, you're not Mandalorian. It's like, dude, they just saved your ass twice in this episode, right? 3 times maybe.
Yeah.
I have to go back and rewatch it. I only remember the one.
Yeah, it's like the first time, and then they get back to the port, and they're ambushed by those other...
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's second time, yes.
Yeah. And he's still like, oh, you don't follow the crew, you're not true Mandalorians. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, just show some freaking gratitude already.
Yeah, really.
I am glad that the frog lady made it to her husband in one piece.
Mm-hmm. And then they go and they kiss the child to them to baby Selma.
Oh my god, when I don't think we've yelled no louder in our entire lives than when we saw him go to the frog people's houses and they're like, we need you to watch him. We're like, no! Like, we would put Darth Vader to shame in how loud our no's were when that happened.
No.
But I'm glad he didn't eat any more eggs, especially since they were fertilized at that point. That would have been really bad. Mm-hmm. But I got nervous toward the end when he came back from and he was playing with a little tadpole in its bath, and I'm like, oh, how cute. Don't eat him, don't eat him.
Still scarred from that last episode.
Like I said, I don't consider it as big a deal as other people do about him eating the eggs, but at the same time, it's still extremely uncomfortable, and I felt that would have pushed the line if he straight up ate a baby. Because like
that would have gone too far.
Yeah. I do like how how the child was actually really like playing with the little one though. I'm like, oh, that's actually adorable.
Mm-hmm. And then Mando goes, I
have enough pets. Also, baby Yoda trying to eat with a spoon. Oh my god, that was so cute.
Trying to eat the chowder.
And then it eats back. Face hugger.
Don't play with your food.
And it happens again on the ship with the freaking squid. I love it. Everything is either trying to eat Baby Yoda or is being eaten by Baby Yoda.
I mean, that's the Star Wars universe in a nutshell.
There's always a bigger fish.
Mm-hmm.
Eat or be eaten.
Any points that you guys liked in this episode?
While it was scary as hell to see the ship falling in free fall and then falls off the freaking port into the water, I'm like, you know what? It kind of needed that wash anyway.
Yeah.
That scene actually I read was actually a nice homage because the director of this episode was Bryce Howard, the daughter of
Bryce Dallas Howard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the scene was meant to mimic the scene from Apollo 13 when it's falling toward Earth, which Ron Howard directed.
Yes.
So that was a nice little...
Like father, like daughter.
Yep.
A nice little homage.
That was scary as shit, though. And I am surprised... I will be surprised if Mando, didn't lose half his inventory from all the shit he's been through in the last 2 episodes.
But on the other hand, he kind of needed to clear out those spider carcasses, especially if there were any that were actually still alive. Let's get rid of that.
He holds on to a lot of junk. I'm surprised he still held on to that robot guy.
Yeah.
You think he would have disposed of that a long time ago.
Maybe he knew he needed a use for it or something. Who knows?
I do like how they finally reintroduced the Darksaber thing because we kind of forgot about it since the last, since the season finale. It's like
I haven't forgotten.
Well, I know you haven't forgotten, but just the way the episodes are being presented, it's like we get to hear it. It's like It's like, we want the Darksaber. It's like, okay, so now we're back to that again. So I'm like, okay, so there's much bigger, they introduced it, but we haven't heard anything from it since. So it's been 3 episodes. So we're almost halfway through the season. It's like, now they're bringing it up.
At least it's you see that this group of Empire is reporting straight to Moff Gideon. So I guess. I think Moff Gideon's kind of what's tying everything together.
I think obviously we're probably going to see him by the time we get to the finale, and there's something with the Darksaber. Yeah. And I think Bo-Katan and crew company are definitely going to be coming back in the finale, because I think everything is going to eventually boil down to what's going to happen with Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon and the Darksaber.
Well, this whole episode, I believe, is finally gives you the reason why the Darksaber was introduced in the first place. Because it's you see him with it at the end, and you're like, oh shit, well, that's a cool little tidbit, but doesn't explain. But why does he have it? What significance is it going to play? And finally, we find out why. It's because the Mandalorians are trying to take back their planet, and the only way to do so is to get the saber. But now that makes me think. And just a theory here, which I'm sure other people have had, because from what I've learned, the person that holds the Darksaber is the one who rules Mandalore. So, and of course, obviously, Bo-Katan's going to do it because she wielded it before, after her sister passed. So, clearly she's going to try to take a rightful place. But given how this centers on Mando, I'm wondering if all these adventures, all these connections he's making is eventually going to culminate into him being the new ruler of Mandalore.
I think there's also another contender, and again, it goes back to Rebels. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming we're going to see that character come back.
Sabine?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think she also, had a hand with the Darksaber in Rebels. So I think, it's any number of, It could be Bo-Katan, it could be Sabine, it could be Mando.
But I don't think they would introduce Sabine in this season, would they? Because I know they introduced a whole bunch of stuff.
Here's the thing, because, and I might be spoiling a bit here with the end of Rebels, but I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. But at the end of Rebels, they jump ahead to the fall of the Death Star and post Empire, and we see Sabine and Ahsoka actually go off together to do this thing.
That's why I'm saying, it's a good possibility she might show up in this, because depending where it is in that timeline, like, they could, be living together or whatever off on their mission. So it's very possible, because I know people have been, like, clamoring for it, and there's been rumors about who might possibly play her, so, anything happened at this point. So.
But, we'll see where Mandalorian goes with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the next episode?
The next is The Siege.
The Siege.
And it's going to be directed by Carl Weathers, and we're going to see him.
Yes.
See him again, yes.
Hooray. Yeah, I'm definitely glad about that. Like, again, we're revisiting an old location, but it's nice to see what they did with it since Mando left. If it's as it was, or if it's better, or whatever.
Did they rebuild the Bounty Hunters Guild?
Yeah. I have a feeling, like, maybe Moff Gideon's going to show up in this.
Could happen.
Because I imagine, since all that went down, he's probably keeping an eye on the planet in case Mando returns, since it is kind of was his base of operations.
Mm. But he did meet defeat there, so he might be a little hesitant to come back.
True.
Yeah.
It's just a theory I have. But we definitely know shit's gonna go down. Like, it always goes down. We'll just have to wait and see. Like, we're definitely gonna get to the episodes a lot quicker from here on out. We just had, again, keep in mind, we all have jobs with different schedules, so it's kind of hard sometimes just to, collaborate. Plus, we have our other shows that we do. But we will try to stay on top of this. Considering it's only 8 episodes long, like, it shouldn't be that hard. I will say, though, I think the internet trolled you when you were reading out the episode list, because I've been looking ahead, and suddenly the titles changed, and I'm like, they got us good.
I've been punked.
It's like you said, they're waiting until, like, the next episode to, like, reveal the titles and stuff, which is fine. Because, on the one hand, it prevents us from theorizing, but on the other hand, it's always nice to be surprised.
Kind of like old school. Back in the old days, that's how television used to work.
Yep.
And I'm kind of glad that Disney is taking this approach with Mandalorian. Although their other show that they're promoting that's coming out in January, WandaVision, I think they're not. They haven't really said if they're just going to do it weekly or if they're just going to throw all the episodes up.
I think at this point they are. Considering how much money they lost with all the movies that didn't premiere this year, they're probably going to try to get what they can and want to get even more subscribers to Disney Plus, so they're just going to stretch it out as far as possible.
Okay.
And frankly, with Disney Plus, they've been uploading on like a weekly basis.
It's better, honestly, because that's the problem with the bomb episodes is that you put everything on at once. Person will get a free trial to the service, then they binge watch everything in a day, and then they unsubscribe. That's no way to make money. At least if they do it a weekly basis, the person has to pay for that service. They have to stay with it. So that's how I see it from a money standing point of view.
Plus, which bombing just leads you to kind of forget everything when the next season comes out, and you have to wait a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
You gotta refresh yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, on the one hand, it's nice to see things, progress naturally, but at the same time, it's like, if you want this to last, you want to enjoy it, you want to not have, what was that, the show hole effect or something?
Yeah, you want to be able to take it in.
Yeah.
And
it's like you should. It's like, when you read a book, like, you really shouldn't read it in one setting. Of course you're going to, but of course it's going to leave an emptiness when you're done. And just with television, it's better that way.
Yeah.
So, anything else to add?
I think we've basically talked about everything that I can think of.
Like I said, these were...
It was nice seeing, the Quarren and the Mon Calamari again.
Yeah. Yeah, so these were interesting episodes. Episode 2 was, okay, except for the horrible egg eating thing. And episode 3, we actually got to see, some good action, meet some cool characters, actually establish plot points. So it can only get better from here, I hope. So until next time when we come back to talk about The Siege, I'm Kat MacBerrie.
I'm Eric Stoller.
I'm Doug MacBerrie.
And we have spoken.